America's animosity against Iran is taking new angles. This time, Washington is pushing ahead a campaign to portray Iran involved in the 9/11 terrorist attacks. A federal judge in New York has ordered Iran to pay $6 billion to the relatives of the victims of the bombings. The lawsuit claims that Iran provided technical assistance, training, and planning to the al-Qaeda operatives that conducted 9/11. This is while an official investigation on the attacks has already made it clear that no links exist between Iran and the terrorists.
This whole thing of accusing Iran of 9/11 was political to begin with, and the execution of it starts with what we call judge shopping. The lawyers decide which district they want to bring the action to, and then they have political influence in determining who the judge is going to be, who's going to rule on it. So you get this absolutely crazy decision that we have here, which really is just something for show, because the court really has no way of enforcing this ruling. They can't go around the world seizing $60 billion of Iranian assets.
To many, the U.S. court judgment against Iran over the 9/11 attacks appears to have been raised at a carefully calculated timing now that U.S. President Donald Trump is pushing ahead a powerful rhetoric against the Islamic Republic. The U.S. media say the move is largely symbolic. Iran has never responded to the lawsuit and is unlikely to ever pay, they say. But the secondary impacts of this cannot be ignored. This came shortly after the sham show by the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, in which he accused Tehran of seeking nukes. It could be that Washington and Tel Aviv are now implementing a multi-layered scenario against Iran with dangerous implications. The U.S. court judgment against Iran over the 9/11 attacks clearly ignored the role of Saudi Arabia, a country against which there is believed to be a mountain of evidence over its involvement in the bombings. 15 of the 19 terrorists who hijacked planes to conduct the attacks came from Saudi Arabia. And there are already speculations that certain elements inside the Saudi political structure had a role in the tragedy. America's censorship of Saudi Arabia's role in 9/11 has already stirred controversy in Washington. There were even reports that the Saudis have threatened to pull their investments out of the U.S. if they are found involved in the attacks. This raises the question whether the U.S. judicial system has fallen hostage to Saudi Arabia.
The Saudi Arabians really came up with, from their point of view, was a very good plan. We will pay our bribes in advance, but actually the money will stay in our pocket. We will invest large amounts of money in these countries, which is still on our balance sheet and we have complete control over. And then we can use removing that money as a blackmail threat. They've done this with the UN. When the UN was going to push initially for more sanctions on Yemen, Saudi Arabia right away said they would cancel all of their funding, their programs that they do to the UN, and the UN folded right away.
Iran has already emphasized that it is a primary victim of terrorist attacks. It has also already flatly denied any role in the 9/11 attacks and rejected charges that it helped the terrorists carry out the bombings as fabricated lies meant to serve certain political purposes. Nonetheless, passing a judgment against the country by the U.S. judiciary system should not be overlooked, even though that might be a symbolic move. The implications involved are just too big, and the international community cannot afford to accept what officials in Tehran are already rejecting as a fictitious scenario.